Welcome to Sports Center with Elle Duncan and Kevin Negandhi. This is making me sad. We've got the very latest on Trae Young's injury ahead, and we're going to get you ready for the Stanley Cup Final. But first, it is win or go home in Phoenix.
Yeah, and a very big night for Chris Paul. He's been waiting for this his entire career,
Yes,
right?
he has.
How about this? The Suns can end the Clippers season,
Let's
a
go.
team that many thought Chris Paul would make it to the finals when he was in LA.
Right.
Different story. The Suns can be the first to clinch a spot for the NBA Finals if they take Game 5. Entering the season, Phoenix hadn't had a winning season in 6 years. They hadn't been to the playoffs in a decade. They hadn't made it to the NBA Finals in 27 years. Now they're a win away from being the first team to ever reach the finals after a playoff drought of at least 10 years. For the Clippers, they've been here before. LA has 6 wins already this postseason when trailing in the series, tied for the most in a single playoff year all time, and they still have hopes of being the first ever to come back from an 0-2 hole 3 times in a single postseason. So Devin Booker, though, he had a 40-point triple-double in Game 1 of this series, but he has struggled since, of course, dealing with that mask and the nose issue. He's missed 13 of his 15 three-pointers since then. Chris Paul hasn't been much better since his return to the lineup, shooting 27% from the floor. Don't let that fool you, though, and what he brings when it comes to the calming presence with a young squad. If the Clippers want to stave off elimination, again, they're going to need a big one from Paul George, who is again without Kawhi Leonard. He is in L.A. rehabbing his knee injury. Sports Center with Stephen A. Smith is coming up. Top of the hour right here on ESPN. And Stephen A., with the chance to finally make it to the NBA Finals for the first time in his soon-to-be Hall of Fame career, what does tonight mean for Chris Paul?
Well, it's everything. I mean, you know, when you look at him and you think about what he's endured throughout his career and how close he has come, but simply no cigar. There's nothing more important than a night like tonight. 48 minutes away from a berth to the NBA Finals, your first time ever. You got best friends like Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James. Obviously, in Dwayne Wade and LeBron James' case, they're both champions multi-times over. And so you have to look at it from that perspective. Then you have to take into consideration how many times he's been knocking on the door. He was knocking on the door as a Los Angeles Clipper. They had a 3-2 lead in the Western Conference semifinals, but they blew it to the Houston Rockets with Harden riding the bench at that particular moment in time because Kevin McHale had pulled him and put guys like Dwight Howard up in there. Then you had a situation about 3 years ago with Houston. You go up 3-2 in Game 5, but that same Game 5, you suffered that hamstring pull. And as a result, you missed Game 6 and 7, and Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry were able to come back and capture the Western Conference championship because CP3 was down in the eyes of a lot of people. Now here you are knocking on the door again. We all recognize the fact that this is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the quintessential great point guards the game of basketball has ever seen, top 5 all time as far as I'm concerned. But to be this close at this stage and point in his career, particularly when so many people had counted him out and thought that his days were pretty much over, it's hard to put into words what a night like tonight will mean to him if he's finally able to get to the finals.
He's not the type of guy that will show his nerves, but I'm sure he'll be feeling it on the inside. More Stephen A. later in the show at the top of the hour for Sports Center as he is live from Phoenix. Stephen A., thank you. Elle?
All right, Kevin, developing story. We've seen injury after injury impact these NBA playoffs. We may have another. Trae Young's dealing with a bone bruise after twisting his right ankle last night. You just saw it there. It's questionable for Game 4 tomorrow night. Late in the third, he just unintentionally stepped back onto the foot of a ref. He'd leave the game, come back, score 35 points, but obviously was hampered by the injury in the Game 3 loss. And despite it coming in a losing effort, check out the company that Ice Trae joined just yesterday, recording his 8th 30-point game this postseason, tying LeBron James for the 3rd most by a player participating in his first postseason. The only players that had more: Rick Barry, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. All of this to say they can't do anything without him. Here is his team talking about Trae.
Today is a day to take care of whatever it is that you need to get yourself ready for tomorrow. So that's where Trae is at. You know, he's getting what he needs, which is a little treatment and whatever else he needs, whether it's a massage or whatever, to get himself ready for tomorrow.
No, that's the head of our snake. So I mean, that's the last thing I feel like anybody who's a Hawks supporter wants to see is that dude coming down with any sort of knick-knack or that's the last thing I want to see. Hate to see it, and just hoping, praying that he's going to be okay.
I suppose it's ironically fitting that a franchise that's taken a huge step forward during this playoff run could be undone by a step back. NBA reporter Malika Andrews is with us now live from Atlanta. Malika, we're a little more than 24 hours away from Game 4. How will the Hawks determine Trey's availability?
Well, Elle, you can take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth with me. Right now, the Hawks and Trae Young, that they're optimistic that he is going to be available to play in this pivotal Game 4. You mentioned the MRI revealed a bone bruise. Well, the thing about that, I've been told, is that means that this is a matter, because there was no structural damage, it's a matter of pain tolerance and treatment. So Trae Young, I've been told, has been getting a lot of different medical advice today, been seeking out that treatment. He said after Game 3, he wants to be available. He's going to do everything in his power to be available to play in this pivotal Game 4. As folks around Trae Young like to say, it would take half of a head for him not to be out there on the floor, and even then they would have to hold him back from not being out there, not going out there, not playing. The Bucks, I'm told, are preparing as if Trae Young is going to be available to play. He's such a focal point of what they do, and Giannis Antetokounmpo said that I'm wishing him a speedy recovery. They want the Hawks' best shot, but right now this is something that changes hour by hour, minute by minute with this type of injury, but indications are good that he's going to be available to play, Al.
I'm sure they want the Hawks at their best, just like they wanted the Nets at their best. But alas, that was not meant to be. Bucks are still going to look to take a 3-1 lead, whether Trae is playing or not tomorrow night. So what is their mindset as they head into Game 4?
One game at a time, Al. And I know you can stop me. That's a sports cliche, but that's something that I've heard from the Bucks for the last couple of years that I've been around them. They're not going to get too high and they're not going to get too low. But the difference, as I talked to one staff member about today, is that in this year, in this season, they're actually able to embody that a little bit better. They've been in this situation before, El, where they were 2 games away from a playoff, from a finals berth, and they weren't able to make it. The Toronto Raptors stopped them. And so this time, when they fell down early in Game 3 to the Hawks, Giannis Antetokounmpo gathered his teammates and said, we're going to take this one possession at a time. And so when Giannis was asked after the last game about what making the finals would mean, he said, I don't want to talk about that yet. We still have 2 games to win, and they are utterly locked in on winning Game 4 and going back to Milwaukee with a 3-1 lead.
So is that all it took, was a pep talk? Because it sort of seemed like Chris Middleton actually fell through the Space Jam portal and became Michael Jordan last night, which was crazy. Malika Andrews, I mean, just an absolute phenomenal performance by Chris. Malika Andrews with the latest there as we head into game. Check in with Michael Wilbon. He's joining us now live from Phoenix. And Michael, I'm gonna ask you to be a prognosticator, okay? If the Clippers are going to survive elimination tonight, they're going to have to do what to extend this series?
Played as they did to the final seconds of Game 2, play the way that they did entirely in Game 3, the game that they won in this series, and play the way with the effort and energy they played the third quarter of Game 4. I mean, it's not like the Clippers are being tagged in this series. The Clippers could easily make the case if they wanted to, and it doesn't help them, that they've sort of outplayed the Suns on balance in this series. If you look, Game 1 was a 2-point game when Devin Booker dunked on an inbounds play to secure that victory. So it's not like they've been out of any game. They've been on top of the action in a lot of this, and they're going to need everybody in that ensemble to play the way they did in Games 2, except for the final 9/10 of a second, and Game 3, starting with Paul George, but making some free throws. They're little exceptions, little wait ifs and buts, and the Clippers are going to have to get around those and have that entire ensemble play well tonight.
Basically, patchwork a bunch of performances together, right, into one final thing. I want to talk about the other series in the East because we do have the Bucks now up 2-1 in the series after last night, but more importantly, Trae Young, now dealing with a bone bruise in his right ankle after he stepped on a referee. He's questionable now for Game 4. I mean, Michael, I don't know. What chance do you give Atlanta if Young is less than 100%, which it looks like he will be?
Not much.
Okay.
I mean, he's their best player. He's their emotional leader. He is their drama. I mean, they seem to feed off of that. Those logo threes he hits. He had a couple last night. Look, Atlanta should have won last night's game. They were up in that game. I'm not going to say, that they were in control.
Sure.
But, they were on top in that game. Trae wasn't the same after that bone bruise, after suffering that you mentioned. And I don't know. I'm just not one of those people. While Milwaukee certainly is a team that could win this entire thing, could be the best team of the 4 remaining, I don't trust the Bucks. I just don't. I've seen too much, not just this year, but over the last couple of years. Maybe they've had enough heartache now that they can go and set aside some of these previous performances and especially take advantage, of Trae Young being less than 100%. We don't know how close he's going to be. But I got to see that. Milwaukee's got to show me at this point. I'm not going to presume. So Bobby Portis, who helped them win the first round series and was terrific last night off the bench, and he might just go 3 or 4 games without playing, because that's the way they seem to roll there. I'm not going to say it's bad play, because it's not. I just don't understand so much of what Milwaukee's doing. And I don't necessarily trust them to use the formula they did last night when Giannis Antetokounmpo is dominating anywhere within 12 feet of the basket. He's the dominant force, and he's been that in the league for a couple of years. But I don't trust that he won't go out and shoot 10 threes as opposed to a couple last night. But Atlanta, no matter what Milwaukee does, needs Trae Young as close to full strength as possible.
It's because of everything else that he does, right? Even if he's not getting buckets, and we saw that in the closeout game with the Sixers, the ability to facilitate, just the threat of Trae is enough to keep defenses on their heels. We certainly hope he'll be able to play. Malika Andrews told us today it is a pain management issue at this point, so he'll see if he's available tomorrow night. Michael Wilbon, always available. We'll be back later on. Stephen A. Sports Center at 7 o'clock to talk more about the Western Conference Finals. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Al.
Did you say Stephen A. Smith?
I did.
He's coming back for his thoughts on the future of Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers, with LA on the brink of elimination tonight in Phoenix. Also stand by for one of the brightest young stars in the WNBA set to join the show live. New York star Sabrina Ionescu updating us on her progress now that her first full professional season is. Back to our developing story in the NBA playoffs. Hawks star Trae Young is dealing with a bone bruise after twisting his right ankle last night in a Game 3 loss to the Bucks. He's questionable for Game 4 tomorrow night as the Hawks are down 2-1 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Last night, late in the third, Young unintentionally stepped back onto a foot of a referee. He would still come back to the game and finish with 35 points. And Tim Legler joins us now in Sports Center. Legs, as a former shooter who's dealt with bone bruises, walk us through how this will affect Trae Young's entire game.
Yeah, it will, because he's going to feel pain on every single cut. And what ultimately that does, it makes it very difficult to accelerate. And Trae Young's speed is a big part of his game. And if the Milwaukee Bucks can sense early that he doesn't have that turn-the-corner speed, that's going to enable him to get into his float game, to get all the way to the rim. If that's taken away from him, or it's limited, or is some way reduced, and he becomes more of a one-dimensional scorer from deep, it's really going to allow them to press up on him, get some length on him, and really make it difficult for a guy like that to be efficient. Big part of why Trae Young is so successful, Kevin, is his ability to change speeds and do what he needs to do from a quickness standpoint to make you trust him enough in the back by getting back off him for the deep game. And then when you crowd him, he can get by all the way to get shorter stuff going toward the basket. If you take that away from him, he's a completely different player. So I think we're all going to wait and see early on in that game if he's got that burst.
Okay, we'll follow this developing story tomorrow night. Now, as for tonight, the Western Conference Finals, the Clippers are facing elimination, down 3-1. What do they need to do to extend this series and force a Game 6 and go back to L.A.?
Well, I'm sure Tyronn Lue would say 5 for 31 from the three certainly would be a good place to start. Let's not repeat that. And I honestly think that's an enormous part of this. You know the Suns are going to shoot better than they did in L.A. That was a horrific shooting performance by both teams the other night. The Suns are going to shoot better at home, and that means the Clippers are going to have to match that. So if you want me to put a number on it, I'm going to say somewhere north of 12 made threes as a team. And look, maybe it needs 15, 16. We'll see. But that means everybody. It's not just Paul George. Reggie Jackson was 2 for 9 in the last game. Luke Kennard missed all of his three-point attempts. Terrence Mann usually can chip in with a couple. Nicholas Batum. There's so many guys, and none of those are pure shooters, with the exception maybe of Luke Kennard. The rest of those guys are spotty, so they need one of those nights where each of them puts in a couple of those at least and give them enough threes to be able to withstand what Phoenix is going to do. I think that's the biggest key. They can't ask much more than what they did defensively. They've got to be much better on the other end of the floor to try to extend the series.
Okay, Game 4 was not easy on the eyes when you look at the offenses of both teams. So who you got tonight in Game 5?
I like Phoenix at home. I think that they realized they dodged a bullet the other night, and this becoming a 3-game best of 3. They're going back home, and they know, Chris Paul especially, this is his first opportunity to have a closeout game to get to the finals. He wants to taste that. I think the Suns win at home.
Okay, Legs, we'll catch you again later on tonight on SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt after Clippers Suns. That is Game 5 on ESPN. We'll have that Game 5 between the Suns and Clippers tonight, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific on ESPN, the ESPN app. Phoenix again up 3-1. SportsCenter with Stephen A. starting our coverage right after us. Top of the hour, followed by the Countdown crew who take you right up to game time. El?
Kevin, here's a little fun fact. Newly hired Celtics head coach Ime Udoka actually has ties with 3 of the remaining coaches in the NBA playoffs. He played under Nate McMillan and under Monty Williams, and he played for and coached with Mike Budenholzer in San Antonio. There you go. And now the longtime assistant coach takes over the reins in Boston after officially being introduced today. Michelle Steele covers it for us in our SportsCenter report.
The Celtics introduced their 18th head coach in franchise history Monday, Ime Udoka, and the symbolism was not lost on the team.
Hopefully our 18th coach for our 18th banner. That would be good symmetry there.
Having fallen short of that goal in the Brad Stevens era, Boston turns its eyes to Udoka, who wasn't afraid to call out his predecessor and the current president of Celtics basketball operations with one of his own goals for the C's: play team ball.
Looked at the numbers overall. Sorry to mention this, Brad, but 27th in assists last year. We want to have more team basketball there. And, I like to try to bring the dog out in guys. And we got some young dogs here and look forward to pushing them.
Udoka, who was an assistant under Greg Popovich for 7 years, says he will be pushing the Celtics' young all-stars, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the same way he pushed Kawhi Leonard to become a championship-caliber player in San Antonio.
I'd say the same thing to Jason and Jaylen. The sky's the limit. The fact that you're not all NBA, that should be a chip on your shoulder. You should play with that edge. And my message to them would be, why wait? The talent is there. The work ethic is there. Don't wait for anything. Go out and take it now.
Right now, Udoka is focused on building out his coaching staff. He's looking for energy, especially as the Celtics look to reset their culture. But he said he's most excited about the players and this roster as the Celtics go for 18. I'm Michelle Steele for ESPN.
The Clippers are facing elimination again tonight, and they're doing it without Kawhi Leonard. He remains out of the series as he deals with the sprained right knee. He remains in L.A. rehabbing, according to Ty Lue. That's what we know about Kawhi's future short-term, but what about long-term as he can opt out after the season? Brian Windhorst has more.
He called over glass to get here. He said goodbye to 2 championship-winning teams. He told the Spurs he didn't want to be there. That was a championship team. Then he went to Toronto, had a title team that probably could have won another title had he stayed there. And he said, no, I'm pulling the ripcord on this, and I'm starting over in the place where I want to play. I just don't see, even though you have places like Miami or New York he could go, and I wouldn't even be surprised if maybe he takes a meeting or something, but I just can't see him upending what he's got going. I think the tough thing for the Clippers will be how many years would he re-sign for? Does he give them 2 or does he give them 5? And what do they do to address the needs on the roster when they don't have any draft picks to trade and they've spent mostly all their free agent money?
Stephen A. Smith joining us now live from Phoenix. Stephen A., we'll get to the game, but what's your reaction to what you just heard there from Wendy on the idea that Kawhi is going to stay in L.A. with the Clippers this offseason?
Well, it's one thing is obvious and one thing is shocking. Number one is obvious. I completely agree with Wendy about what the probability is of him staying in Los Angeles after departing from San Antonio and then Toronto. It was all about wanting to be back near home in California and obviously in Los Angeles, California. And so because of that, the likelihood of Kawhi Leonard choosing to depart seems a bit slim, to say the least. But here's the shocker that I'll give you, Kevin. I don't know if it's in the Clippers' best interest to keep him.
Oh.
Nobody has said that, so I'll be the first to say it. Let me be clear about something. Kawhi Leonard is a top 5 talent in this game. He is elite. But when you take into account the load management, when you take into account that his personality doesn't actually gravitate towards leadership. He's more of a watch me do it, a do it kind of guy, as opposed to really galvanizing the troops and being a talker. And then you combine that with the fact that he's not necessarily reliable, at least this postseason, hasn't gotten any younger or what have you. And you look at the elevation of Terrence Mann, this second-year player who clearly is not on Kawhi's level. But if you look at the athleticism, if you look at the youth, the fervor, the want-it mentality, playing night in and night out, and you're talking about building a culture, then I'm sorry. I don't know. I think that it's something that Ballmer and the crew have to think about long-term. Now, obviously, if they come up short, which I expect them to come up short in this Western Conference Finals, then you're talking about keeping Kawhi because you want to go for a championship again next year and the year after. But if you're talking about culture building and having somebody long-term, I don't know if he's the guy, number one, because of his durability, number two, because of the load management, and number three, because of the youth that you have playing on your squad already that's performing in the postseason.
It's a high price tag as well when you look at the cap, and you just stunned me with that comment. You mentioned, though, that he loves L.A., and if this decision happens where he's not going to come with the Clippers, or the Clippers say we're going to just pass on it, hypothetically, like you just brought up, if it's not in the best interest, could you see him going to the Lakers and still staying in L.A.?
No, I would see him going someplace like Miami before I saw that happening, because obviously he would want his money, and I don't know how much money the Lakers have to give him. That's number one. But again, when you look at Kawhi Leonard, it's no questioning his greatness. There's no questioning his talent. And if you're going for a championship, he's your guy. But if you're talking about building long-term and building a culture, I don't know if he's proven to be that guy because of his durability issues. It's just that simple to me.
All right, you talk about culture, and then you think about immediately Miami. They have one already built there with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Oh, you've just opened up a Pandora's box. Much more from Stephen A. Smith, top of the hour. Sports Center with Stephen A. getting us ready for Game 5 tonight.
Phoenix. Chris Paul is one win away from his first trip to the NBA Finals. How the Suns can wrap up the series on their home floor tonight. Also, a report on the condition of Trae Young's ankle and have the Bucks figured out the Hawks' dynamic offense in the last two games. And how a one-on-one meeting with the late, great Kobe Bryant inspired Devin Booker's mindset on the court and a tattoo on his right arm.
We're going home to the best fans in the league. This will feel good.
Phoenix is the site of Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. It's a win-or-go-home scenario for the Clippers. Meanwhile, the Suns are just one win away from their first Finals appearance since 1993. Chris Paul has shot less than 30% in back-to-back playoff games for the first time in his career. He hopes to shoot it better tonight to get to his first ever NBA Finals. Tonight, Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. CP3 is the closest he has ever been to an NBA Finals appearance. It's been 16 excruciating years, rife with disappointment. Some due to play, some due to injury. But in the end, it does not matter. No matter how illustrious CP3's career has been, no matter the fact that he has been recognized as one of the greatest quintessential point guards this game has ever seen, all of that has amounted to nothing in his eyes because of moments like this that he has been deprived of. Yet tonight, he's 48 minutes away from his very first NBA Finals appearance. You can hear him knocking on the door, as he has done in the past. The difference is before he was hurt. This time he's healthy. He's ready to go. Now let's see if he answers the call. For more on tonight's game between the Clippers and the Suns, let's go to our reporters on the scene and start with Dave McMenamin.
Chris Paul has the most All-Star selections, All-NBA selections, and career points of any player to have never played in the NBA Finals. It's been 16 long years, and Paul said he can wait a little longer, saying he will not think about the final stage, quote, until the job is done. Paul said he is laser focused heading into tonight's Game 5 against the Clippers, and his Suns teammates are focused on propping him up as well. Devin Booker said he knows how much Paul wants it and added, quote, "We have his back." Now for a report on the Clippers, let's go to Om Youngmisoo.
Thanks, Dave. Erasing a 3-1 deficit has only been done 13 times ever. but Ty Lue did it with the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 2016 NBA Finals. I asked Lue what can he take from the comeback to help the Clippers. He said it starts by winning the first quarter of Game 5 and taking it quarter by quarter. Lue remembers LeBron James setting the tone for the Cavs by scoring 12 of his 41 points in the first quarter of Game 5. Tonight, Paul George knows he can't miss 6 or 7 three-pointers in the first quarter like he did in Game 4. Otherwise, that could be the Clippers season. Back to you, Stephen A.
Thanks, Ohm. We've got a champion in the house in Kendrick Perkins, a Hall of Famer right next to me, and Mike Wilbon. Perk, I'll go to you first. What should we expect from CP3 tonight?
I expect CP3 to come out and lead his troops. He's going to come out with a killer mindset, Stephen A. and Mike Wilborn. When you think about his post-game interview with Rachel Nichols, and she asked him about being up 3-1, what did he say? I don't want to talk about it because I have had bad experiences being up 3-1. That means to tell me that he's locked in, he's focused. I expect CP3 to bring the intensity. I expect them to bring...
Wilbon, I'll ask you. What are your expectations for CP3 tonight?
I expect him to lead the Suns out of this sort of offensive malaise that they've been in, Stephen A. Which means himself first, right? I mean, he and Devin Booker, I mean, these are as good players as there are in the league in terms of poise in difficult circumstances. By the way, they've avoided an elimination situation so far in this postseason. They haven't even had that. I expect to see those guys play with a lot more calm and purpose offensively, while still playing with the kind of defense they were in the first half when they held the Clippers down in Game 4. I expect to see that tonight.
Wilbon, I want to transition to another question to you because obviously I've been dying to ask you this question. CP3, at this stage and point in his career, in his life, he's made it this far. Once upon a time, he was playing with Blake Griffin. That didn't work out. Was playing in Houston with James Harden. That didn't work out. Both wanted to part ways with him and vice versa, it seems. How should they look right now in light of the fact that CP3 is knocking on the door and about to make the NBA Finals?
That's a great question, but let me answer it this way. Even Chris Paul has said, and Chris and I are working on a project together, his book together, that I'm the editor for. And we talked about a million things over these past few months. And one of the things Chris says, he is self-examining. He is self-critical. And I don't hear a word of him blaming the players that it didn't work out with.
True.
If they didn't make it all the way. He never does it. Not on the record, not off the record. He doesn't do it. He examines himself. He's changed everything. His workout regimen, his diet, his attitude about certain things. And even Devin Booker jokingly says he can be tough to take, meaning the leadership part, that where Chris Paul he can't be easy. It's got to be difficult. And they talk about that. But Chris applies it to himself and the current team. I know he's been tough on DeAndre Ayton, particularly earlier in the year.
Well, it's worked, damn it.
It worked.
22 rebounds in the last shoot 70% from the field.
Maybe that's where some of those other former teammates ought to say, well, maybe it would have worked if we kept at it. I have never heard one time Chris Paul blame the guys you've talked about for them not getting over the hump and into the championship round.
Perk, I'll go to you. James Harden, Blake Griffin, former teammates of CP3. As you said, Wilbon just explained, CP3 doesn't talk bad about them and vice versa to their credit. How are they looking right now if CP3 ends up going to the finals? Real quick.
Well, they looking crazy for the simple fact that CP3 is a guy that holds people accountable. All right, he's a guy that leads by example. He is a winner, and if you can't handle CP3, then you're just a soft-minded and not mentally tough. CP3 could have went anywhere this offseason. He could have got bought out. He could have went to the Lakers. He could have went anywhere. He chose to go to the Phoenix Suns with Monty Williams and a young core because he knew that they would embrace him with open arms.
Well, listen, I'll give CP3 all the credit in the world for that, Perk and Mike Wilbon, because he did make that choice, and obviously before he was traded to Phoenix. But let's not forget he is getting over $40 million. That is an incentive. Let's not act like that.
A few other places,
I understand
but he did choose to get it here.
$40 million with less state income tax. Anyway, let's move on. Coming up next, all right? On SportsCenter, Trey Young and the Hawks' chances against the Milwaukee Bucks. Plus, the words Kobe Bryant said to Devin Booker in Kobe's final season that Booker uses as his motto today. All that and more when SportsCenter with your boy returns in a minute. Look at him. Look. Hold on. I thought we were going to commercial until I saw CP3. just now. Look at him. Look at him. Hey, is that DeAndre Ayton's chain? CP3 has stolen DeAndre Ayton's chain. Oh, no, you didn't do that. Oh, no, you didn't, CP3. You think it's a borrow? You think it's a
for clinch night.
I'm just wondering. Back with more in a minute.
By himself.
20-17 in the fourth quarter of Game 3. It was the second time a Bucks player had 20 points in a quarter over the last 25 years. Middleton has both of them. For more on the Eastern Conference Finals, we have reports from both teams, starting with Tim Bontemps on Trae Young's injury.
Hawks coach Nate McMillan said Monday was a get what you need day for his team. What Atlanta really needed, though, was good news about Trae Young's sprained right ankle. An MRI revealed a bone bruise in Young's right foot, and the Hawks listed him as questionable for Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals Tuesday night against the Bucks. But that didn't change the level of concern Atlanta had about its star and his availability for the biggest game of the Hawks season. That's the head of our snake, Hawks forward John Collins said. That's the last thing I want to see. I hate to see it, and I'm just hoping and praying he's going to be okay. For more on the Bucks, here's Malika Andrews.
Tim, you mentioned the Hawks using the phrase head of the snake when talking about Trae Young. Well, the Bucks use that too, and they are preparing as if he is going to be out there for Game 4 because, as Giannis Antetokounmpo said, he is such a focal point of their offense, and they want the Hawks' best shot as they look to go up 3-1. And in order to do that, they're going to need to get off to a faster start. And Giannis Antetokounmpo said that comes one stop at a time, one possession at a time. They have been in this position before where they've been 2 wins away from the NBA Finals, and it hasn't gone their way. So they're not letting themselves look ahead too much as they look to rectify that history, Stephen A.
Thanks, Malika. Big Perk and Wilbon back with me right here. Perk, I'll come to you first. How much hope is left for the Hawks in this series, and what is it based upon?
Well, it's no hope, Stephen A., and I hate to say it. They just got to get on their knees and pray. For the simple fact that Trae Young, he has to be healthy. He's a small guard that relies on his speed, his quickness to get past bigger people. And when you have a guy like Drew Holiday guarding you, you need to be 100%. And right now, what Giannis is doing, attacking the paint, only took 2 3-point shots last night. He is dominating inside. And Lord knows, Chris Middleton, the performance he put on last night. All they need is for Drew Holiday to be consistent and come to the damn party. He played one of the worst games of his career last night on both ends of the floor. They get anything out of Drew Holiday, guess what? The Bucks in 5.
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't even think they need Drew Holiday at this point. Not if Chris Middleton is shooting the basketball like that. If he's shooting the basketball like that and Giannis is attacking the basket, that's putting more pressure on the Hawks to hit their perimeter shots because it's the only hope they have, Wilbon, and I don't see much of it. I think it's Bucks in 5 as well. Where are you at with this?
You going to promise me that Giannis is going to play within 12 feet of the basket, or might he wander out and shoot 12 threes like we've seen him do in this postseason? Stephen A., if Giannis plays within 12 feet of the basket, 10, 12, 14 feet of the basket, and does what he did last night, of course they're going to win every game. But Milwaukee wanders away from its own formula.
Yeah.
They get happy shooting threes. Middleton doesn't even need to shoot that many threes. What, mid-range, in which he's one of the best people left, he and Booker in these playoffs at mid-range scoring. You mean to tell me they need threes to beat Atlanta? No. Atlanta's got to, as Perk said, Trae has got to be, 90% of himself in order for Atlanta to have a real chance. But I've got to see the Milwaukee Bucks stay with what they ought to do, and we haven't seen it. How about if Bobby Portis doesn't play for 2 or 3 games like it happened in the Brooklyn series? Bobby Portis had 15 points off the bench last night. Defensively, you know you can count on him to a great degree. Is he going to play? We have no idea what the Milwaukee Bucks are going to do from night to night. If they play like they did last night, that's the formula. They win the series easily.
The Milwaukee Bucks are in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we still got ourselves scratching our head at what we've seen Budenholzer do so far, particularly with Portis. Anyway, if the Bucks are going to win their first conference title since 1974, Giannis will continue to play a very, very major role. Here's our very own Kirk Goldsberry taking us off the charts.
The book on Giannis Antetokounmpo is a tale of 2 scores.
In the paint, it is the best of times. No active player combines volume and efficiency here as well as Milwaukee's MVP. This season, Giannis scored 17.6 points per game in the paint alone, converting 70% of his shots here. That's the best conversion rate in the league among players with at least 500 attempts. In the epic 7-game net series, Giannis joined Shaquille O'Neal as just the second player to score 150 paint points in a single playoff series over the last 25 postseasons.
Antetokounmpo, flex on him.
No matter the pressure, no matter what's going on, we are built for this.
But here's the deal with Giannis. Outside of the paint, it's the worst of times. This season, he made a frosty 32.5% of his jumpers overall and just 30% of his threes, despite shooting mostly uncontested shots. Giannis has been the worst three-point shooter through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, converting only 19% of his threes. That's ice cold, folks. And then there are his free throw troubles on full display against Brooklyn when Giannis made less than half of his 60 free throws. If Atlanta wants to win this series, they need to keep Giannis away from the rim and turn him into a jump shooter and a free throw shooter. Easier said than
We now welcome in senior NBA writer for ESPN, Mark Spears. By the way, very tough trip, very tough assignment that ESPN sent you on to the Bahamas. I mean, my goodness, that's a twist your arm. But listen, on a more serious note, DeAndre Ayton's got a lot of family members, expecting to have a lot of family members in the house for tonight's game. Speak to how important his family's support has been to him.
Yeah, it's certainly a family affair. There's been about 12 people that have moved from the Bahamas to Phoenix. You would think they'd want to be in the suite for this game. No, they want to be in the seats. They told DA we want to stay in the seats. So he has about 20 people here tonight. And if they win and they get to the Suns to the finals, expect Mama and Aunt Jackie to cook oxtails.
Right.
To cook rice and peas.
Ain't nothing wrong with oxtails. There's nothing wrong with oxtails.
And to cook your favorite curry goat.
That's right. You know I West
So we might, if they win, we might have to go.
Yeah, you know I West Indian man, you know.
Yeah.
West Indian Island, yes, absolutely.
We got to figure that out.
Let's transition to the Olympics, the Tokyo Games, because Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, only guys left that's going to be on the Olympic team in the playoffs right now. Are they expected to participate in the Olympics, even if they make it to the if it goes as far as the finals?
USA Basketball Executive Director Jerry Colangelo said today, yes, he expects all 3 of them to play. If they all make it to the finals and they get to Game 7, I think it ends around July 19th, he said he will have a private jet waiting for him in the States because the team will already be in Japan and taking them there. Devin Booker called him a month ago, called Colangelo and said, I want to be on Team USA. Expect me in. I don't care how late the season goes. And it's a childhood dream for him. So he wants to be there. Colangelo is a little worried about injuries, and he has spaces just in case one of these guys get hurt or decides last second not to play. But he has a space for him, and he's a little worried about Booker's nose, but I think he's fine. And I expect Booker to start the game with a mask today,
right,
and maybe wearing a mask in Japan as well.
Well, listen, it ain't like it's a knee injury or an ankle or a calf or something. It's his nose. He'll be all right. He'll be all right. Let's transition to Chauncey Billups for a quick second here, because once upon a time we thought he was en route to a front office job. But now he's decided to go in the coaching ranks. Obviously, we've been hearing a lot of news about him and the Portland Trail Blazers. Why did he decide to make that transition?
Well, in 2017, as you know, he probably shocked both of us, and he turned down that Cavs job, being the president of the Cavs. In 2019, he called Doc Rivers, Stan Van Gundy, and Steve Kerr and asked them, what do you like better, coaching or being in the front office? Chauncey told me that all 3 of them said they enjoyed coaching much, much more. Being around the players, being around basketball, being close to the guys. So that ultimately pushed him over the edge in terms of being a coach. Called his buddy Ty Lue in 2019, became an assistant coach with the Clippers, and tomorrow he'll get introduced in front of the Portland media as a new coach at the Blazers.
I think it's the right call to make. Now, obviously, we're hearing a lot of things about maybe that wasn't Damian Lillard's guy, what have you. It was really Neil O'Shea who wanted him, whereas somebody like Damian Lillard thought about Mike D'Antoni because Mike D'Antoni made James Harden the league MVP, Steve Nash an MVP. That's what he's trying to sell, but in the end, you're going to be happy with Chauncey Billups,
I see
right?
PG and I see Kawhi on the bench. When he talks, they listen.
That's right.
Remember that old E.F. Hutton commercial?
That's right.
They listen when Chauncey talks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
emotional roller coaster of a playoff series. There is nothing like it. As some words being exchanged, a hard foul. Extracurricular activity after the whistle. A lot of chatter out there right now. Starting to get sick of each other. Ball scoots inside between the legs, backing away, knocks it down. Reggie Jackson from downtown. Kawhi Leonard going crazy. Paul throws it up for Ayton, throws it down. Paul George, so reminiscent of Game 2. That'll do it. The Phoenix Suns 1 win away from going to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1993.
Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals tonight tips off at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN. Let's go on to the man on the call himself, the one and only Jeff Van Gundy. He'll be calling the game tonight. Coach, breaking news just came in a few minutes ago. Sprained MCL. Ivica Zubac is out for the Los Angeles Clippers. What does this mean for their chances tonight, sir?
Well, it further reduces their depth. He was playing very well at both ends of the floor. Gave them much needed size, offensive rebounds, which turned into second chance points. But I also think it opens up opportunities for the Clippers to commit completely to playing a smaller, more open lineup to keep the lane clear and uncluttered so that Paul George, Reggie Jackson can get in there and score and get better shots.
Well, Coach, you say what you just said. Is that your way of saying you think that has inhibited their offense to some degree, having big fellas in there like a Zubac or DeMarcus Cousins to a lesser degree, clogging that middle may have gotten in the way of their efficiency offensively?
Well, I thought it was a good move to go to Zubac in this series. Absolutely. I thought it was the right play. But with anything you get, you're going to take away a little bit from another area. So while it helped their offensive rebounding, their screen setting, their defensive presence against Ayton, I think it did hurt their spacing. And I think it's incumbent on Paul George, though, Stephen, to take more responsibility to get higher quality shots. Think about it. The 3 top players in this series, George, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, not one of them is shooting over 40%.
Chris Paul's at 27% over the last 2 games, Coach. How aggressive do you believe he should be tonight?
Well, I think he's gotten good shots. People, I think, underestimate what being off 2 weeks does to your rhythm and your flow from an offensive standpoint. I think he's gotten quality shots. I think he's made some big hoops. But I think if he plays at a higher level of efficiency, it ends here tonight in Phoenix.
What about DeAndre Ayton, Coach? This guy's shooting 71% from the field. I think he's been pivotal in this series thus far. How would you describe his overall impact on this series?
He is so much improved from just a year ago, playing a much simpler, sounder game where he is playing off the stars of Booker and Paul and doing what he does best. He picks, he rolls, he catches, he runs, he rebounds, and gives them second chance points. And then defensively, he is trying exceptionally hard in his pick and roll coverage. I couldn't be more impressed with how much DeAndre Ayton has improved.
Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, Mike Breen on the call tonight. Game 5, Western Conference Finals right here on ESPN. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time as always, man.
Anytime.
Reggie Jackson, there he is. He's made 52 threes this postseason, the most of any player and the most in a postseason run in Clippers history. We welcome back Mike Wilbon. Mike Wilbon and Kendrick Perkins right here with me. You heard the news, Zubac is out. What does that mean for the Clippers in your estimation, Wilbon?
Well, I guess the optimistic news would you talk about strategically having that lane uncluttered, and particularly Paul George, as Jeff just described, having some space to work. And you know what? Who knows? Any little wrinkle that's different than you're expecting defensively and have planned for and have talked about during film session, I mean, could count in favor of the opposition. But 14 points, 13 rebounds. He's been good on the glass. He's been good inside. He has offered some resistance to Ayton, and goodness knows they need it because Ayton has probably been the best player overall in this series, Stephen A.
Perkins, your thoughts about Zubac being out. What does that mean for the Clippers in your estimation, sir?
Oh, it means that it's over. I mean, look, Zubac is the only big and the only guy that could match DeAndre Ayton. Much respect to DeMarcus Cousins, but defensively, he's a liability. And here's why I disagree with Coach Van Gundy. Well, for the simple fact that, yeah, you could try to go small and do the spacing like they did against Utah, but the difference is with Ayton, he's athletic enough and he's mobile enough to stay in front of guards. And Phoenix does a hell of a job of loading up boxes and elbows and taking away driving gaps. They also do a hell of a job of getting on their high horse and rotating to those corners and helping the helper when it's time to rotate to three-point shooters.
Perkins, here's where I disagree with you and I side with Coach Van Gundy. I think by going small, that quickens the pace. It's going to facilitate you getting more open shots, not necessarily unclogging the lane and it being that big of a factor for Paul George to operate. But I think you're going to get up and down the court a bit quicker because I think whether it's Zubac or anybody else, you had no big that could run with DeAndre Ayton anyway. So to me, your best shot if you're the Los Angeles Clippers is to go small because that could create some opportunities. Wilbon, what do you say to that?
I think Phoenix is better if it's small, and I think Phoenix is better if it's quick. If you got pace, remember, that's what Monty Williams has been screaming at his team back to the previous series. Pace, let's get out. That helps Booker, get loose, get to the foul line because he's going to go all the way to the basket. I don't think small plays into the Clippers' favor, Stephen.
All right, what about you, Perk? Go back to your point.
Well, here's the thing with the pace, and first of all, in order to have pace, you got to be able to get stops. And Zubac did a great job of anchoring that defense and anchoring that middle with Patrick Beverly and Paul George being able to push up and hound those guards because he do a great job of verticality and blocking shots. You go small, you also open the lane up for the Phoenix Suns. And like Mike Wilborn just said, pace is what the Phoenix Suns want. Devin Booker is great at getting out in the open court. He don't get enough credit for how he gets out in transition.
I appreciate that lucid explanation, that intelligent explanation that Big Perk just gave me and you.
Always does.
But I still find myself looking at him, noticing that he disagreed with Coach Jeff Van Gundy, and I found myself saying, "Oh no, you didn't disagree with Coach Jeff Van Gundy. Oh no, you didn't, Big Perk." Let's go to my top 5. Number 5 on the list. Look at Chris Middleton put on that show in Game 4 last night, Game 3 last. I mean, this brother put on a show. 38 points, outscored the Hawks by himself.
He's the closer. He's the closer.
Hit it from the baseline. Hit it from the wing. Hit it from the key. Pulling up jumper. Oh, no, you didn't. Do that right in the ATL
yes, he did.
in front of all of those people. Chris Middleton. Oh, no, you didn't. But Big Perk is right. Oh, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Let's get to number 4 on the list, please. Give it to me. The Clippers are down 2 with 5.8 seconds left. DeMarcus Cousins comes into the game. He's supposed to hit the rim, y'all, when you're missing a free throw on purpose. But he forgot the rule. Oh, no, you didn't. Forget the damn rule, DeMarcus Cousins. Oh, no, you didn't. You're supposed to hit the rim because if you don't hit the rim, obviously it's illegal, which obviously we all knew. They get the ball. The Phoenix Suns get the ball back, and ultimately the game is the. No, you didn't forget the rule as a professional NBA
player. You know, like the Mo people say, God bless his heart. He didn't know no better, baby.
That's God bless his heart. Let's go to number 3 on the list, please. Thanasis Antetokounmpo, the brother of the Greek Freak. Here he is. There's a 3 from the goal. Why are you jumping to try to block that shot when you at the free throw line? Oh, no, you didn't.
Distraction,
jump up for
Stephen
no
A.
reason. You're about 15 yards away from the plate. Oh, no, you didn't do that. What are you doing? What are you trying to block right there? Jumping like he's doing jumping jacks.
Distraction.
15 feet away from the
15 feet
away.
Come on, man.
Cheerleading on the sideline.
Clippers, right here. Look at this. Paul George cut the lead to 6. The crowd is going crazy after Paul George puts in this jumper. Mike Breen said Kawhi Leonard's going crazy. Oh, no, you didn't lie to the public like that, Mike Breen. No, you didn't. That was Kawhi Leonard going crazy? No, it wasn't. He didn't move. Show no reaction whatsoever.
Him going crazy.
Now, I would say this. Mike Breen was clearly joking. He was just having fun. Because that ain't going crazy. No, you didn't do that. Oh, no, you didn't. And let's go to number 1, please. Chris Paul, look at this move right here. Behind the back, between the legs, fall away jumper over Zubac. Oh, no, you didn't sprain that man's MCL on that play. Oh, no, you didn't. That's probably what sprained his MCL right there. Trying to dive to hit that, to block that shot. Didn't work. Didn't work at all. Chris CP3. Chris Paul.
Who said the mid-range was dead?
That's right. Special. Special. Look at Reggie Jackson right there, pulling up for those jump shots, y'all. If he hits jump shots tonight, Mike Wilbon. Clippers got a chance.
Like he did in Game 3.
I still believe. Chris Paul is looking to reach his first NBA Finals with the win tonight. The last time the Suns reached the Finals included a stellar Game 7 performance from Charles Barkley.
44 and 24.
Supersonics.
44 and 24.
That would be correct.
Against Sean Kemp.
Yes.
It's a hell of a game.
Hey, Book, you guys are one win away from going to play for an NBA title. Do you let your mind go there?
I mean, we know it's on the table. You know, we're not looking too far ahead of.
Johnson way off the mark, but Barkley there as if it were a pass. And Barkley at his best.
Barkley has been able to get the ball and do what he wanted.
44 points, 24 rebounds. As angry as he can be sometimes, he can light up the city with that smile.
But we definitely understand that, you know, if we win the next one, we're headed to the NBA Finals.
Charles Barkley was absolutely dominant in that Game 7, 44 points, 24 rebounds, and leading the Suns to their NBA Finals appearance in 1993. It was the only NBA Finals appearance of Charles Barkley's career. Mike Wilbon, Big Perk, back with me. Wilbon, we go to you. When we talk about CP3, how impactful will Chris Paul merely reaching the Finals be for his career?
Huge. Remember, that was the only time Charles reached the Finals. He was 29 years old, though. We thought there was going to be more, particularly out of that Phoenix team. Chris Paul, older, what is Chris, 34 now? But he's got so much more in him. He has changed so many things to get to this point, Stephen A., to get to the point of just getting to the Finals, and obviously, desperately, he wants to win. But Chris Paul is one of the great leaders in today's game. We're looking at this footage now. Again, Charles took it to Sean Kemp and Gary Payton in that game, to 44 and 24 to get the Suns to the Finals.
I'm going to say Sean Kemp. Gary Payton don't play that position.
No, but Gary was a great
him for that.
Gary was a great player and became great. And those guys were ascending then. Right. But with Chris Paul tonight, he and Devin Booker, this is what they have thought about and worked toward from day one of camp. And people thought, okay, maybe there'll be a 7 seed or a 6 seed, a 2 seed in the entire league. And for Chris to have this kind of season, they thought Devin Booker could. Nobody knew yet what was in DeAndre Ayton. Now we have a great idea of it. So the Suns have gotten to a place through sheer work that they think they can cash in tonight.
All right, fellas, let's get to the prediction. We're here in Phoenix, live for Game 5. Big Perk, I'm gonna come to you first. Who you got tonight? The Clippers? Are they forcing a Game 6, or are the Suns going to the NBA Finals?
The Suns are going to the NBA Finals, and Chris Paul is going to lead them. Look, Chris Paul has done the unthinkable. He could have went anywhere. Sam Presti was ready to grant him anything, and he went to the Phoenix Suns, did the unthinkable. He's not going to go down tonight. He's going to will this team to victory. D-Book is going to go for 30-plus because he has that Mamba mentality. He's going to bounce back. DeAndre Ayton is going to finish with his 20 and 10, and that building is going to be rocking.
Wilbon? I must say that you have been up and down this series. I mean, you have been giving your predictions and reaching the conclusions like 5 minutes before we go on the air. But here we are, Wilbon. What is going to happen in Game 5 tonight?
I think we get another alley fight like we did in Game 4, Stephen A. It's going to be tough, and there's going to be some back and forth. There was no real back and forth. Clippers could never tie the game or get a lead. I'm going to go with Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Knowing what's at stake, feeling what's at stake, I think there's going to be a little more freedom tonight. No Zubac hurts the Clippers. And I think it's going to be a tough, dramatic game, maybe a ball in the air game at the end. But I'm going with the Suns to get to the Finals for the first time since 1993.
You know what? I was a bit dicey. Thinking that, I picked the Suns to win this series in 7.
Same here.
I still believe that the Clippers have something inside themselves that can force things to happen, but I was assuming Zubac was going to be up in there.
He was important to them.
And now that we know that he's going to be out, that means DeMarcus Cousins comes into that game. Now, we all know that when Boogie Cousins is healthy, he can put up some points, he can grab some rebounds, okay? The one thing we also know he can't do is run up and down the damn court all day long. And if you're the Phoenix Suns and you see DeMarcus Cousins out there, you're DeAndre Ayton, you tell him just run all day long. And that will be that.
This goes back to Phoenix playing fast. It might really be in their favor, Stephen A.
It might really be in their favor. So guess what? I'm going to look at the Suns, and I'm going to say Chris Paul is going to his first NBA Finals tonight. He drops about 23 points, has about 15 assists, and Devin Booker drops 35. That's what I see. 35. Can I get an amen, yes or no, Perk?
Amen. You preaching the gospel.
All right. Wilbon, can I get an amen?
You get an amen. You get an amen from me.
Okay,
Church
so we
is
all
in
agree.
service.
That means we got to be right. We about to get on out of here. Game 5, set live from Phoenix for your boys. Big Perk, Wilbon. This is Stephen A. Smith signing off. Now for the NBA Countdown crew. Tune in.
The Western Conference Finals returns to Phoenix, Arizona, where it is coming in hot and looking to clinch its first trip to the NBA Finals in over a decade. I promise you that Phoenix Suns Arena will be bursting at the seams as fans have an opportunity to see their Suns rise back to NBA prominence and the Finals for the first time in those 10 years. Meanwhile, Paul George, though, is looking to do something the franchise has never done. That's overcome a 3-run deficit, and he will have to do it in clutch play down the stretch against a Chris Paul, point guard, who's back and has more all-star appearances and playoff career points by any player to never make the finals, trying to clinch his first career finals appearance in 16 seasons in the league. And Devin Booker, playing his very first ever playoff, could be making a trip to the finals. It all depends on how Game 5 between the Clippers and the Suns shakes out. Before tip-off, we got to count you down. Atmosphere and an opportunity to clinch the NBA Finals will happen here tonight. Maria Taylor alongside Adrian Wojnarowski. We got Jalen Rose in a new fresh suit.
Hey, you look crisp.
Thank you. Trying to get my color together. We got Jay Will in the building. We've seen the suit before, but that's okay.
I thought you were proud of my suit. You said you were proud of my suit in the car.
I know.
See how she tried to do me?
Clean, boy.
It's love, though.
Hey,
It's love, though, MC.
It's all love. We appreciate it. And, you know, something else we've seen before is the outcome of the Eastern Conference Finals matchup that we watched last night. Although the game went over to Atlanta, didn't change things. The outcome for the Hawks still walking away with the loss. But let's start with the Mountain Dew three-point performance, because you need to understand how the Bucks were able to knock down threes to get this victory. And after a slow start in Game 3, the Bucks made 8 3-pointers in the second half in their win over the Hawks. Chris Middleton, though, made 5 of these, including 4 in the fourth quarter, as he became the first Bucks player over the last 25 postseasons with 20 points in the fourth quarter. And speaking of Chris Middleton, he and Giannis each went for at least 30 points and 10 rebounds for the third time this postseason. They are the first pair of teammates to do that in 3 games within a single playoff year. In fact, the only teammates to do that 3 times in their careers are Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. Meanwhile, guys, on the Hawks side of the ball, we all saw it happen last night. Trae Young, he did drop 35 in the Game 3 loss, but this play could have a major impact. You saw Trae landing on referee Sean Wright's foot. The MRI today revealing that he has a bruise on his right foot. So now for the latest on his status going into Game 4, we go out to Atlanta and Malika Andrews.
Maria, while Trae Young and the Hawks were initially optimistic about his availability for Game 4, this is the type of injury where things can change hour by hour, minute by minute. So they're continuing to monitor Trae Young, I'm told. It's about his pain tolerance and his mobility. So he continues to get treatment because Trae Young is a player who so badly wants to be out on the floor with his teammates. And the Bucks, I'm told, are preparing as if he is going to be out there playing in Game 4 because, as Giannis Antetokounmpo said, he is such a focal point of their offense, and they want the Hawks' best shot. But this is truly something, because things change, where they're going to need to see how Trae Young feels in the morning before making a final call for his availability in Game 4. Back to you in Phoenix.
All right, appreciate it, Malika. Obviously, Trae Young has been an aberration so far this postseason. He has 8 30-point games, and he's playing in his first playoffs, Woj. But obviously, the Hawks would have to really battle hard with their star hobbled in Game 4.
Yeah, and as Malika is reporting, there's real concern about his status for tomorrow night. And you've seen in these playoffs, it has become a battle of attrition. This is a Phoenix team, that faced in the first round a Lakers team that lost Anthony Davis, and then a Denver team, that was without Jamal Murray, and now a Clipper team that didn't have Kawhi Leonard to try to come back from another 2-0 deficit. And same thing in the Eastern Conference. This has been an Atlanta team as they've starting to gotten beat up in this series. Bogdanovich missed 13 of 16 shots
in the last game for Atlanta, and now the possibility that their best player and Trae Young either could be limited or out for that game. It has shown the teams who have physically been able to withstand the punishment of this season are on the cusp of getting to the NBA Finals.
And Woj, you acknowledge the crucial thing that's going to work against the Hawks, their best player. And we're seeing that in this series without Kawhi Leonard. And what does Trae Young do? Everything for the Atlanta Hawks.
Literally everything.
That's how Collins eats. That's how Capella eats. Playing off the ball, gives Bogdanovich a chance to get opportunities. Has helped make Red Velvet into an ATL cult hero. So without Trae Young, and if he's hobbled, unfortunately, Jay Will, they may not win another game if he's not 100%.
Well, and I'll add to that, Jayla, when Trae came back into the game with just about 9 minutes left to go, and even though he was in the game, he was hobbled, the Hawks were outscored 25-9. It wasn't the same even though he was on the court but wasn't full strength.
Right. And today's a different day because today is going to be the first day throughout this playoff series. I'm giving a shout out to Coach Budenholzer. You know why? Because in the fourth quarter, you saw them attack Trae Young. Chris Middleton was always involved in a pick, and he always ended up with Trae Young as his primary defender. They attacked him. So when he was hurt, when he was hobbled, that's what you do. That's what people want to see them do in the series against the Nets when he was being guarded by James Harden. So I give a big shout out to them. And look, when they play at the highest level, the Milwaukee Bucks are really good, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really good with the way they defend, and Chris Middleton taking over in the fourth. And that's a championship team.
Yeah, and we heard Giannis even saying, like, I'm cool with Chris Middleton taking it over at the end of games as long as we get the victory. And he's been great in clutch time, and we saw him being able to score poured on in the fourth quarter. Are we just being awakened to Chris Middleton being this clutch player and his ability to really lead a team during the playoffs?
I think for mass consumption, yes, because when you add Drew Holiday and people like me say they have a big three, the question mark for a lot of people is what about Chris Middleton? He's a game-changing player, Maria, because of one thing. He's efficient, and he's fearless when he get going. And I saw what happened. He was guarding Gallo in the post. Gallo elbowed him. He got mad at the ref. It was like, oh, it's like that? And before you know it, killer instinct kicked in. And he scores from all phases, and he's unfazed by the moment.
Yeah, and he's such a good teammate, good leader. When Giannis needs him to step up and take over a game, he does it. When he needs to defer, he is all about winning. And I think when they brought in Drew Holiday as their third star there, and here's a perfect example. In the last game, he shoots 2 for 11, but he has a dramatic impact on the game because of how he defends. And so they've got a group in Milwaukee that they had hoped, could get them over the hump in the East, and they're almost there now.
And guys, let's be honest, he's had multiple seasons where he's flirted with 50, 40, 90.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just to let people know, that's very challenging to do with the volume of shots that Chris Middleton has to take playing with Giannis.
Well, it's only about 10 people in the history of the league to ever do that. But also, his fourth quarter prowess does not take away from Giannis' greatness.
Thank you.
I played against Shaq and Kobe. In the fourth 46 minutes, it was give it to Shaq. The last 2 minutes, hand it over to the Black Mamba to close the deal. That's what you need your skilled perimeter player to do.
Exactly, and that's why Chris Middleton leads him in clutch points.
Yeah, well, listen, that's a great point that you bring because we were going to get there anyway, but the 2000 finals with the Pacers and you were going against Shaq and they were outscoring you in the paint by 64 points. Right now, the Bucks are outscoring the Hawks by 70 points in the paint. So I'm actually curious, as a team, how do you deal with it? Is it just like, listen, these are the points we're going to give up. That's Shaq, that's Giannis, whatever, and try to come up with a different game plan to defend? But how do you attack a situation like that?
See, this fun-loving Shaq that y'all get to see on every commercial, that man was violently dunking the basketball. And they was on the triangle, Jay. You know he'd get on that left box, and he was the immovable object. And there was nothing you could do about it. Multiple players, multiple fouls, multiple double teams. You just hope to stop him from dunking or foul him. For Giannis, he's all over the place.
Right.
And he just developed a one-leg fallback jump shot. So when you're going against a guy like Giannis, it's key for him to continue to attack Maria. Giannis, don't settle regardless of who's guarding.
The answer to your question, Maria, is no, you can't stop them.
No.
You can't stop them with their size,
They
with
don't
how
settle.
they attack in transition, and when they do not settle. The only hope for the Atlanta Hawks to win is Trae Young needs to come back and have an out-of-body experience. He needs to be the prolific scorer we've known him to be because he does so much for this team.
Yeah, remember, this is an Atlanta team that's without DeAndre Hunter in this conference semifinal. This was a really good two-way player who's really grown in his couple years in the NBA, and Atlanta's getting to a point now where they, like the Clippers, may just not have enough firepower to stay with, a high-octane Phoenix team and obviously a team in Milwaukee that's running on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, we've seen Bogdanovich, he be hobbled with a leg injury. We've seen Trey now dealing with the ankle. Obviously, DeAndre Hunter is not there. Cam Reddish not able to go. So the battle of attrition might hunt another 48-point ice tray if you're going to get a victory over the Bucks at home in Game 4. Obviously, we'll all be watching for that tomorrow. Tonight, we are here to see whether or not the Suns are going to be able to clinch a trip to the NBA Finals, but they still got to go against the Clippers. They want to come back from a 3-1 deficit. First time franchise history. Reggie Jackson has been lights out this postseason.
That guy's turned their season around. When they were down 0-2 early in the playoffs and they inserted him into the lineup, his irrational confidence has helped Cal
George patiently waiting. He's averaged 20 points on 42% shooting when facing elimination, and now he's got to do it without his all-star, his two-time Finals MVP, Kawhi Leonard, with an opportunity to force a Game 6 in LA. Now remember, the Clippers trail 3-1 in this series despite outscoring the Suns by 3 points in their first 4 games of the conference finals. That is the third best points differential by a team to trail 3-1 under the current playoff format, which began in 1984. For more on the Clippers' mindset heading into Game 5, here's Rachel Nichols.
Well, Maria, this will be the 18th game the Clippers have played in 37 nights. And Ty Lue told me in order to make sure his guys have fresh legs at the end here, you can look for him to throw some zone into their defensive schemes during the first half. He also plans to add a few more guys to the rotation early and then tighten to his core guys as the game goes on. That's the X and O side. There's also, of course, the mental side of playing in an elimination game, especially when you're down 3-1 in a series. But if there's any coach who can rally the troops in a situation like this, it is Ty Lue. Ty not only coached the greatest comeback in NBA history, his Cavaliers, of course, the only team to rally from being down 3-1 in an NBA Finals. He's coached teams that have come from behind in multiple other earlier rounds as well. He told these Clippers that coming back here is, quote, very doable, and he's reminded them that in the last round, they reeled off 4 straight wins against the top-seeded Jazz. Well, to win this series, they'd only need to reel off 3 in a row. Of course, LA did have Kawhi Leonard for some of those games. Kawhi won't be here tonight due to that knee injury he's been dealing with. And the Clippers won't have Ivica Zubac tonight either. He's out with a sprained right MCL that's going to force LA to go small for most of the night. Guys, you can bet DeAndre Ayton is going to try to take advantage of that.
All right, thanks, Rachel. Well, guess what? The Suns have dethroned the defending champs, swept the MVP, and now have a chance to play for a championship. We take a look at what Phoenix